Hello everyone and welcome back to My Opinion. And Australia have won this third test match in Indore by 9 wickets, a comprehensive victory for them. Now in my previous video I had mentioned that they didn't take advantage of the 3 pressure points that they were on the verge of hammering down on, and because of that, especially the third out of those pressure points meant that they collapsed in their second innings and the match ended prematurely. Now, in the first 2 days of that test match overall, I thought Australia were the better side. They would have been satisfied with the way they competed. And they would have been disappointed that they couldn't at least compete to that level in the rest of that game. And that game didn't last very long after the end of the second day. And after that loss, I thought, if you view things through the prism of cricketing theory, how much could Australia really get out of the third and fourth games in this series? Could they even look to go out of one of the games with a draw? And how they responded to that question was that they did something that they couldn't do in the previous game. And that was that whenever India were vulnerable, Australia took advantage. They bowled India out cheaply in their first innings, secured a sizable lead in their second innings. And even though they lost 6 wickets, or they lost 6 wickets for 11 runs, they'd already done the bulk of the job by then and would have gone into that second innings of India's feeling satisfied with the lead that they had. And especially in the Indian second innings, I thought especially 2 dismissals just showed in what way the game was going. The dismissals of Shreyas Iyer and Cheteshwar Pujara, outstanding catches from Usman Khawaja and Steve Smith when those 2 batsmen were going really well. And as a touring side, or as a fielding side, when you've lost the first 2 test matches in the series, especially with how hard of a place India is to tour, especially when you are playing test cricket, you're looking to get at least something from the remaining games of the series. And when the game is already going well for you, and then those catches are completed, then the message you get as a fielding side is that, right, this game is ours to win. It's written in the stars, and we have played so well this game that we deserve to win this game. And in the end, it was a comprehensive victory for Australia. Apart from losing 6 wickets for 11 runs, Australia completely dominated this game, and they really deserved to win this game. I still thought India could win the game even after they were bowled out cheaply in their first innings. And it looked like normal service would be resuming when Travis Head was dismissed early on, and Marnus Labuschagne should have been dismissed when the score was on 14 off the same bowler. Unfortunately, it was a no ball. And considering the partnership that ensued after that point, you'd think that India, if at all they had conceded a lead, would have conceded a much lower or much less of a lead than what they did end up conceding. And I think that it was a very intelligent partnership that ensued between Usman Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne, and overall it cemented Australia's advantage, you thought, up to that point. Really, they had the advantage of bowling India out cheaply for 109. And then, considering the collapses that we have seen from Australia on occasions this series, taking their side from 12 for 1 to 108 for 2 would have given the team huge confidence. And in terms of boundaries, they didn't really get too many boundaries between them. In Usman Khawaja's 60, he scored 4 fours, and in Marnus Labuschagne's 31, he scored 1 4. But what was on offer was singles, and they did take that offer. It was a very frustrating partnership for India to bowl to, and they would have been very happy when they broke that partnership when the score was on 108. And the partnership between those 2 clearly was the reason why Australia, or the main reason why Australia could get to the 197. They got themselves to 188 for 4 after that point, and I will be explaining things in detail of what went on, of course, before I go on to India's innings. But after that, they lost 6 wickets for the last 11 runs, and luckily for them, largely because of the foundation set up by Usman Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne, they'd got a sizable first innings lead that they would have been happy with going into India's second innings. And on the Indian bowling plans, I thought, first of all, I thought the reviews were terrible in this innings, and as well as Rohit Sharma's review in India's second innings. And they burnt out their 3 reviews by the time the score was on, I think, 130 odd or so. And Ashwin had actually dismissed Usman Khawaja earlier on in the piece when the score was on 40 odd, and because of looking to conserve the reviews, they did not take the review at that point in time when they should have done. So that's something that did go against them and could have made their lives a lot easier, would have made their lives a lot easier had they got that right. And I didn't understand the bowling plans to Usman Khawaja. I thought for the first part of his innings, the left-arm finger spinners in Ravindra Jadeja and Akshar Patel were bowling from around the wicket, turning the ball in. I would have thought they would switch to over the wicket much earlier than they did to attack from more of a direct angle. And not too long after Jadeja switched to over the wicket, Usman Khawaja was hauled out in the outfield and Shubman Gill took the catch. And from that point in time, India started to kind of fight back in the innings. And Australia got themselves to a very good position, a very slow but vital partnership between Cameron Green and Peter Handscomb. I think they scored at less than 2 an over for about 22 overs in that innings, where they scored 40 runs or so. But after that point in time, 6 for 11, which Australia would have been disappointed considering they would have won. They thought we can get an even bigger lead than we've got now. But they still would have been happy with the fact that they'd got that sizable lead. And it was vital for India, especially looking how things went after that, that they got that they got the 6 wickets in a hurry after that point. And like I said in the previous part of this video, I thought that especially 2 dismissals summed up the momentum that Australia had. And even the batsmen that were going quite well in Cheteshwar Pujara, who scored a very good 59, and Shreyas Iyer, who scored a counter-attacking 26. The catches from Usman Khawaja and Steve Smith just show that Australia had the momentum. They'd done enough in the game so far to deserve that upper hand, and there was very little chance that they'll be relinquishing the game from that point in time. And once again, I thought a lot of the dismissals from the Indian batsmen against spin were very ordinary. I thought the pitch overall has received a poor rating from the ICC, and I think that seeing Cheteshwar Pujara's dismissal in the first innings, where I think 6.8 degrees of turn were recorded, really set off alarm bells in many people's minds, and therefore the pitch got a lot of stick for supposedly being a poor one. But in reality, look at the other dismissals in the innings, and only Pujara's and maybe Ravichandran Ashwin's dismissals were actually kind of more very, very good quite good deliveries. There was nothing that Pujara could do about his dismissal, and Ashwin's dismissal was off a good delivery. But apart from that, they were fairly ordinary dismissals, nothing to do with the surface playing up, and it was India's doing that they were bowled out for 109 in that first innings. And in the second innings, the service didn't really misbehave much at all. Yes, the ball turned and bounced, but that's what you get on turning tracks. And the dismissals, some of them were very ordinary in both innings. So considering that, and considering how Australia went about it for a large portion of their first innings and how they went about it chasing the score in their second innings, if you applied yourself, you could get some runs, and Australia applied themselves better than India did. And I saw a very disheartening rumour on Twitter that they were supposedly going to prepare normal tracks in Ahmedabad. And the last time a test match was played there, we saw what happened. Like I said before, India as the home team have every right to make use of their advantage. Yes, they lost the game this time, but I don't think they should be... In fact, if they prepare a different kind of surface, I don't think it would be because they have doubts about their own game plan. It would be because they're responding to the critics from the outside, mostly the media, because the players from both sides haven't criticized the surfaces in any way at all. And it's mostly the clamour from the media. I believe if the curators tend to, people who, with the connotations that are applied to turning surfaces, how they're compared to minefields, for example, I just think that there's a certain fraternity or part of the cricketing fraternity that just doesn't seem to acknowledge that there are turning surfaces and there you have to adapt to the challenge of playing on them. And I don't think the creators should cater to such a crowd. I believe that India have every right to use the advantage that they have at home, the power that they have to request services or create services to their pleasing. And I think that India should stick to playing on a turning surface. I've said wherever I needed to say about the batting, especially in my previous video, that look, when you play in India, you can have an open selection, really. I mean, no matter who you play, you'd think they would do a job. And when that is the case, I don't know why they don't look to use whatever resources that they have. You don't have to play the players that you're playing, despite the fact that, yes, they may have quite a big reputation, but I just think that the commercial players, which a few of these players are, despite the fact that they wouldn't be bad players of spin, they would not be as good of players of spin as players who have to play on these surfaces on most days and play against spinners most of the time. You've got players that average substantial amounts and are getting some huge contributions in the domestic circuit. And there are some players who aren't even in contention for natural selection and yet are comfortably outperforming the players that India have got on the side as of now. And you think, when you've got such a luxury that whoever you play in whatever role you can get the result, I don't know why those players aren't being used. You've got players who they know of as well, like Meghar Balu, like I said in my previous video, averages 82, which you wouldn't think anyone in this side or most of the players in this current top 6 would be averaging that amount, playing a substantial number of or a decent run of games in the domestic circuit. And that's all I can say on that, really. I don't think they will make any changes, of course, but it's something that I don't really think will change. But unless they do that, you've got a reality where domestic sides like the Karnataka Ranji team, for example, would overall club together to post decent totals more often than the actual Indian national team top 6 would most of the time. So that's the case that you would have. They got lucky in the previous game where they were 139 for 7 and once again relying on the finger spinning all-rounders to do what they do. And that's not going to work every time. The moment you didn't get a contribution from them and the top order also didn't mostly do anything, then you saw what you saw. So really well done to Australia. And for India, look, I mean, I don't think there is too much to panic, of course. I still think that India had an opportunity to win the game despite the fact they were bowled out cheaply in their first innings. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way they wanted it to go. I thought certain plans, for example, not bowling from over the wicket to Usman Khawaja sooner from a left-arm spinner's point of view. And the spinners in the second innings, I thought, I'm sure Ashwin would admit as well, that he probably erred too full in the second innings. And the moment Travis Head was starting to counter-attack in Australia's second innings, when you're defending a score of 70-odd, it would have been difficult already. And I thought once again Marnus Labuschagne played a knock-in second fiddle to ensure Australia got home safely in the end. So that's on that. The next game is in Ahmedabad. I hope they don't cater to the crowd that would not like to see these kind of surfaces and are quite alarmed by seeing these kind of surfaces. I hope that India make use of the home advantage that they have. And if they do, I do think that, look, they had a bad game this game, but I do think India can do something in the next game. And for Australia, how one resounding victory really changes an outlook. I think before this game, they would have been thinking, right, what can we look to get from the next 2 games? Let's give it our best shot. And I thought it was a learning experience in the previous game. They got close to really putting pressure on India. Unfortunately, they couldn't follow through on the pressure points that they were on the verge of hammering down on. In this game, they did that. And apart from losing 6 for 11, they completely dominated this game. So I think they would certainly be carrying some confidence going into the next game, and let's see what happens. This should be a very good game in Ahmedabad. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend. Remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?